What's up, Inquirers? In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at an incident that unfolded on the streets of Richmond, Virginia between about 4 people, in which some shots were exchanged as well as racial slurs. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, you are watching Inspiring Inquiry. Alright, so in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some content that I found on Reddit. Now, I did find this like about 2.5 weeks ago or so, but I've had a lot of things going on here. Now, I got some other videos that I want to do, but I planned on doing this one a couple weeks ago, so I wanted to go ahead and get it out. A few weeks ago, on the streets of Richmond, about 4 guys get into an argument, 2 riding along in a truck and 2 being outside, one guy having a bike and the other guy standing on the street. So before I go too far into this video, let's just go ahead and take a look at it, and I'll let you guys see and you can determine what you think, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more, some of the legalities that are surrounding this instance. I always give the same caveat before criticizing or critiquing any video that I find online, and that's that we don't know what happened before or after the situation, or what happened behind the camera. All of these things could play a role into what we see on the video. So I just want to go ahead and give that, as I always do, before I go into talking about this video. Now, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and dig into it. Now, in the video, as it goes along, we can see that there is a truck. It's pulling through what seems to be an intersection. There seems to be people out in the streets, and it seems to be a lot of stuff going on. The truck is moving along. Somebody yells something at them. The truck stops, and then the driver of the truck gets out with a weapon in his hand, starts walking towards the other 2 men, and he looks like he's pretty angry. Now, as he approaches the 2 men standing outside of his truck, he fires off a shot that you can see because a plume of smoke rises from the gun. Now, although this may be claimed to be a defensive act, because like I said, we don't know what happened before the video started rolling, it doesn't seem to be the case, because these 2 people were in their truck, they were moving along, and it didn't seem that their path was impeded in any way, especially by the 2 gentlemen of which they get into a confrontation with. As he approaches the 2 men, the gun discharges. Now, we don't have access to his mind, so we don't know whether or not it seems like it was intentional, but to be honest, only he knows whether or not he meant to fire that weapon, but it looks intentional. Now, after he fires the shot, the 2 men come up to each other. The other guy is seemingly not really fazed by it at all. They make contact when they bump against each other. But let's talk about that for a second, because there's something in this interaction that I missed the first time, and it can give you somewhat of a biased view towards the video if you do miss these things. Now, with all the protests and stuff that have been going on lately, there have been a lot of noises that we hear in videos. Some of them sound like gunshots, others sound like they could be fireworks, some sort of a firecracker, something like that. Sometimes these things can get mixed up. The first time I watched the video, when I hear those other pops after the shot that he made, I thought that they might have been fireworks or something like that. After watching the video a few times, that's when I caught something else. After the first shot is fired and the 2 men make contact with each other, you can hear some other poppings, and that's when I seen this. So it would seem that they both have a gun and they both fired at the ground. Now, this may play a part into why this altercation took place in the first place. Now, it could have been that the guy outside maybe flashed the gun, waved the gun, threatened with the gun. Any one of those things could be an explanation for why this happened. But like I said, we don't know what happened before or after the camera started rolling, as well as what happened behind the camera. So there could have been a lot of other things that played into this instance taking place. But regardless of what started it, we want to talk about how dangerous is doing something like this. So noticing both men firing at the ground, the first guy who got out of the truck seemed to have fired the gun at an angle. So I wanted to go and look up and see whether or not I can figure out how dangerous is shooting at the ground at asphalt or concrete with a gun at an angle like that. And that's when I came across this video.
And I am way off from that target. That I've created this big divot in the concrete block. But even though there's a divot there, we still see that most of this splash, most of what's come over here and hit the target, especially the biggest pieces, are relatively close to parallel because this is a hard and flat surface and that was a relatively shallow angle. Now I'm at more of a 60 or 70 degree angle into the block. Take a shot. And now we've got still a lot of things that are over here along that parallel line, but some of the heavier pieces came out a little bit further.
From the video of the 4 people in Richmond, we can't tell what happened after the shot was fired, it hit the concrete, but from this instructional video, we can get an idea of what happens when bullets at angles do hit concrete. Now, according to this video and the test that the guy ran in this video, it shows that bullets, when hitting a hard concrete surface like that, will hit and be deflected and then go almost parallel with the way that the wall is facing, which leads me to believe that the bullet traveled parallel with the concrete and either probably hit a car or a tire or possibly could have hit a person. We don't know because we didn't see any of that stuff in the video, but that is negligence with his firearm. In the video, the guy claims a number of times that he's an Army veteran. Now, given the situation, we would expect people who are trained by the military to exercise a certain level of restraint when using a firearm. Really, this dude looks like a kid with a toy. Now, given what took place in the video, what are some of the legal ramifications that could be awaiting one or potentially all 4 of the people involved in this situation were they to be arrested for this altercation? So I looked up some of the laws in Virginia, and what seems to fit this situation the best, given the circumstances that were played out, is willfully discharging a firearm in public places. Now, given the circumstances of which we don't really know the full scope of, it could mean a number of different things given how this played out, like whether or not it hit somebody, whether or not it was in a particular place, and we're going to go through some of those in this video. If it hit someone, it would be considered a Class 6 felony, in which it would have a maximum punishment of 5 years with a minimum of 1 and a $2,500 fine. But if it didn't hit anybody, it could be considered a Class 1 misdemeanor that would land him up to a year in jail plus a $2,500 fine. There are also a couple things that could play a factor into how someone would be charged with these kinds of crimes. Say, for instance, it was at a church or a school somewhere, then it could be bumped up to a Class 4 felony, even though this looks to be like it was in a street somewhere. There are, however, a couple more things to consider that may change the gravity of the punishment. The law also states that if it was committed within 1,000 feet of a church or a school or something like that, that it would also be bumped up to a Class 4 felony, resulting in a maximum of 10 years with a minimum of 2 and up to a $100,000 fine. Now, even though we can't see, there could possibly be a school or a church somewhere nearby within a 1,000-foot radius that might change how someone would be charged with this crime or sentenced with this crime, what the punishment would be. After the group of guys are done posturing to one another, you can hear one of the guys say that he was in the Army. It looks like he pulls out a pair of dog tags. They kind of go back and forth, yelling at each other and whatnot. Then the truck begins to pull off, and you can hear what sounds like a racial slur being yelled from the passenger seat, because it looks like the passenger actually sticks his head out of the window and looks back at the people they were just having a conflict with. As we can see here, 2 more shots are fired from the person in the black shirt, because you can see more plumes of smoke and it actually looks like his body jerks a little bit in those motions. But given the possibility that it was racial slurs that were shouted from the passenger seat or the driver's seat, wherever it came from, the 2 in the truck could be facing additional hate crime charges as well. Now, the state of Virginia defines a hate crime as a criminal act committed against a person or his property with the specific intent of instilling fear or intimidation in the individual against whom the act is perpetrated because of race, religion, or ethnic origin, or that is committed for the purpose of restraining that person from exercising his rights under the Constitution or laws of the Commonwealth or the United States. 2, any illegal act directed against any persons or their property because of those persons' race, religion, or national origin, and all other incidents as determined by law enforcement authorities intended to intimidate or harass any individual or group because of race, religion, or national origin. Now, what would ultimately determine whether or not it was a hate crime would be up to a lawyer giving that argument and a judge deciding whether or not that argument is enough to support the idea that it was a hate crime, that it was a racial motivator, or one of the things listed that motivated them to stop the truck, get out, fire the shots, all of those things. Now, like I said, we don't know all of what was going on with the situation. The other person had a gun. He fired off his gun after the other guy in the truck fired off his gun. So there could have been something that happened that was maybe them waving their gun or something like that that actually instigated the altercation, and it wasn't actually based on race. But with them yelling racial slurs out the side of that, that is going to be ammunition used if this was to go to court, because I don't know. I looked up in Richmond, Virginia, and I was trying to see if there was any news about some of the incidents or anything like that, if anybody had been arrested. There wasn't anything that I could find. But if it did go to court, that's ultimately how it would have to be. The lawyer would have to make that. And I mean, it does give them ammunition to go that route if they wanted to. It's bad enough going out and discharging your weapon as a military veteran to a group of people outside of your truck when you were safe, you could have drove off. And then as you do drive off, there are racial slurs being yelled from the vehicle that you're in. It just looks really bad, and it made a bad situation even worse for them. But if it were deemed to be a hate crime, it could add to the aforementioned punishment an additional 6 months in jail with a minimum of 30 days. Now, given this situation, I do feel like there are criteria that could fall under that, but given that it was the passenger and not the person who discharged the weapon or was driving the truck that yelled the racial slur, it might get dismissed that way because it wasn't actually the person perpetrating the crime against the other two guys. It was the guy sitting in the passenger seat who was yelling it as they were driving away. Lastly, I want to talk about the fourth perpetrator, the person that was in the black tank top, because as the truck begins to pull away, as they yell what sounds like a racial slur, it sounds like he's yelling the N-word out of the passenger seat. It looks like the person in the black tank top raises his arms a bit, as in this video, and then he starts to kind of sneakily go and weave in and out between cars. What it looks like he's going after the truck in some sort. Now, I never seen in the video whether or not he had a weapon. I didn't see him discharge a weapon or anything, but it did look like his arms went up and pointed towards the truck. So it could be a possibility. There may be additional charges added on if that is something that happened. I did hear the other guy pop off 2 shots as they went to ride away. It just looks like he was just firing shots at the ground just to do it. I don't know. But in my estimation, after watching the video, it seems at least it would be a class 1 misdemeanor with a possible hate crime charge, and at worst a class 4 felony with a possible hate crime charge, depending on the location that they were at and the proximity to other institutions that they may have been. Well, guys, I really appreciate you watching my video. If you haven't already, like this video, share this video if you want other people to see it, subscribe to my channel, and make sure to hit the little bell for notifications on when I post new videos in the future. Make sure to comment down in the comment section below what you think about this situation, how I did this video, any and all thoughts that you want to share. As always, you guys are watching Inspiring Inquiry.